this morning we're just going to take 10 minutes of your time to talk about reimagining the way we do business. Who would have imagined that 12 months ago we'd all be living our lives on Zoom and doing our networking on events like this on software called Remo. But the world is changing and we need to change with it. I can remember 12 months ago, we did our first conference call when we were all home working. We were very pleased with ourselves. It was the launch of CBILS, which was the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme at the time. We were an accredited lender and we had to pull together a quick call. We all got on the call. It was very successful and we're very happy with ourselves, but only to find out a couple of days later it cost us £40 a head because of our conferencing setup not being that efficient. Needless to say, we moved on quickly from that supplier. And research suggests that businesses that innovate through crisis outperform their peers significantly when you're comparing to businesses that just simply look to weather the storm. I'll come back to that later in my presentation, but for now I'm just going to talk to you about three businesses that we work with closely, three customers of ours who over the last 12 months have reimagined the way they do business, maybe change direction, and give themselves a brighter future, hopefully being more robust in the face of potential future crises. The first one is a business that's always thought like a startup. It's Clifton's Print Finishers in North London, a family business of many years and a long-standing customer of ours. They're always looking for the next opportunity, and this was born out a few years ago when, off the back of the war against single-use plastic, Tim and the team set up Paper Straws London. This was obviously to provide paper straws to the industry, and what they found was that there was a big demand for high-quality paper straws that didn't dissolve in your drink. We've all had the experience of a paper straw that we use and within 5 minutes it's gone mushy and it's not fit for purpose. These are quite often come in from the Far East. Paper Straws London wanted to stick true to their beliefs and their values as a business of high quality product, and they produced Paper Straws London. This was very successful and continues to be so. As they went into COVID, like many of us, they were affected by the pandemic, unfortunately. But again, looking at trying to find an angle, they had a light bulb moment, and their light bulb moment was to come up with Stationery London. So Stationery London was born off the back of the home working environment that we're all very familiar with these days. And there's a demand for high quality home office stationery. So they repositioned the same brand effectively. They had the skill set within the business to be able to do this, and they'd done it on a commercial level for many years. But instead of being a B2B offering, this became a B2C offering, i.e. direct to consumer, using their own website, which would give them the growth and potential future growth they needed to have that robust business going forward. It's relatively early doors for Stationery London, but it's been successful so far, and we wish Tim and the team all the very best of luck for the future. So as we come on to our second case study, there's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. And our second case study very much lives by this mantra, and that's an Edinburgh-based printer called Ivanhoe Caledonian. They're a collaboration project by the very name. They were originally two separate Edinburgh-based printers, Ivanhoe and Caledonian, who came together when they realised that actually they would be stronger together than they would be apart. When COVID hit last year, again, like many, they were affected. And at the time, their strategy for growth was an acquisitive one. So they were looking at acquiring businesses, and they were quite well progressed with that strategy, with targets in mind, and they were well underway. But when the pandemic hit, they decided this wouldn't necessarily be the best strategy through a pandemic. They pulled the team together and they had a bit of a brainstorming session and decided that organic growth, and more specifically the packaging market, was a market that they should be trying to get into. As it happens, they had some exposure to this market, probably sub 5% of their turnover, but they had customers, they had suppliers, and they had access to the supply chain. They did their research, they did their due diligence, and they repurposed the team to really push hard into this market. And they found that there was a need and a requirement in that market for short-run UK manufactured packaging, which there was a bit of a hole in the market. They pushed hard into that area, and I think COVID probably reinforced this, with overseas products being hard to come by and being delayed. This has been a successful journey for them. They took their team, both internally and externally, their partners along with them, and more importantly, their customers along with them. And what they found with that is that you build loyalty both within your own team and with your customers, but you also get reasonable expectations from all of your partners and your customers, which is not always the case, as we all know. This has resulted in them growing the business through COVID. Actually, it's been very successful, this move into the packaging market. So much so, the packaging element of the business has contributed over 50% of turnover in the last 12 months. So again, we wish them all the best of luck, and to Keith and Ian and the team up in Edinburgh, and it's a pleasure to work with them. Our third case study is a business called Callus Packaging. So they are a business, again, we've worked with for a long time. They're always prepared to look at options and prepared to pivot, as the slide suggests there. Callus are or have been a horticultural packaging printer, which is very seasonal and very niche, and therefore they've always been on the lookout for ways to iron out those peaks and troughs, as a lot of their business comes in a very short period of the year. When the first lockdown came, obviously this was March last year, which was right at the start of their busy period, and they were affected, whilst maybe not as much as many, they were quite significantly affected. And at the time, they were looking at options to diversify the business. They did a little bit of PPE work, like many businesses did. They redistributed their manufacturing and did some PPE work, but they knew this was only short term. But they're both a digital and a litho printer. Their digital machine being HP Indigo, and HP had introduced them to a customer who needed some work done in the vaping market. And they quickly realised that this very much suited the type of business setup they had, especially the long run packaging work, which was highly variable. It was long run but highly variable, and this suited their setup because they could put that through their digital machine, but at the same time finish it in the traditional way. Off the back of that, they pushed very hard into this market, did a lot of marketing, did a lot of PR to really try and find a larger customer base and make the company more diverse. And a large opportunity came when actually they were contacted off the back of this PR by a customer who was producing the labels but couldn't produce the cartons for a large blue chip vaping company. They collaborated together and now are producing the cartons and the labels together. This has been highly successful, and they are growing their turnover month on month on this side of the business. So much so it's reaching the point now where it's ironing out all of those troughs, and they hope in the future that it will be a significant contribution to the business. Again, we wish them all the best of luck in this venture. But talking to John at Callus, he is already on to the next project with that true entrepreneurial mindset. So that's the three examples of businesses that have reimagined the way they do business. And history suggests that significant economic or social disruption creates a market need or a behavioural shift that innovators use as a launch pad for new products and services. And when I was talking earlier, I mentioned that businesses that innovate outperform those that just simply look to weather the storm. And this slide, and sorry for the obligatory graph on a finance talk, but there's only one, I promise. This graph shows the comparison between businesses that innovated and their peers through the 2008 financial crisis, and more importantly, post the crisis, and how their performance was over and above those of their peers. It's just an interesting slide and quite a good slide to show that effect. So there's a good quote that I really like. Richard Bierman, who's the managing director of Startup Loans which is part of the British Business Bank, who we work with closely, said, "These may be challenging times, but let's not forget that historically, moments like this create great things." That's something that I and we at Compass would endorse and agree with. We often see that crisis brings dramatic change. I talked about Zoom and Remo earlier on. And change naturally brings some of the greatest innovation and creativity. We are excited to see how this affects business trends over the coming months and years. Whilst I don't profess to know what those trends are going to be, I'm sure there's entrepreneurs out there who have already imagined them. And what COVID has done is given some people time to take a step back and think about their business and reimagine how their future could be. And I think this is a sensible thing for everyone to do, whether it's a crisis or not. We at Compass are here to help. We distributed this coronavirus business interruption loan scheme. We're involved in the recovery loan scheme, and there's lots of government schemes out there. If you'd like to talk to us, there's several of us in the audience today. Feel free to do so, or contact us after the event. But I think whilst it's been a challenging year, there are potentially opportunities ahead of us and exciting times for all.